It is Friday, 6/23/2017. So you know what time it is. Oh, I'm sorry, 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you know what time it is. It's time for some coin metal. And, yeah, apparently a little bit of Theo Goodman wore off on me there because I was feeling a little dewy there for a moment. I don't know if you guys tuned into the Bitcoin group today, but Theo, gotta lay off the sauce, bro. Or, I don't know, maybe slow up on some whatever else you may be ingesting at the moment. I don't know, but it was too intense for that particular show. Yeah, inebriation was high. Anywho, we're closing out a very exciting week. You know, we had the flash crash on Ethereum and a whole bunch of ICOs, and you just never know what the old Twitter feed's going to bring us today. I mean, I do have some tabs open and some stories that I do intend to go through today, but you know, it's been one of those days, not quite in gear, not quite out of gear. Really got the elbow tested today, but I think I did all right. Other than that, in getting my ass kicked today at jiu-jitsu, because it was get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday, and I did, as usual. But you know, I'm feeling good about my direction with it. I think that I just need to spend more time doing it, and that if I did, I get a lot better, a lot quicker. Anywho, I want to go ahead and kick into some music, and I'm dying to see if my program actually included the new stuff that I put in here. It's not really new per se, but new to us. You know, we haven't been listening to my entire discography, and so, you know, I've had a few things in hiding that I've been slowly bleeding into the selection, because this is actually it's actually a relatively new computer build for me, and so I haven't like imported all of my songs yet, you know, all the music that I enjoy listening to at any given time. And so, like I said, God damn it, I don't even see it in here. Man, I hate this program sometimes. Oh wait, there it is. Screw it. It's been a weird day, folks. So our first dance is going to be by a band you probably never heard of before. I mean, you may have, but I don't know. They're kind of an eclectic taste, but quite enjoyable. Push Monkey with Lefty here on Coin Metal. That's right, you better believe it. That was Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good by Megadeth off of Killing Is My Business and Business Is Good album of the same name. And that was their first LP release, to my knowledge. At least the first one of any real note. Let's see here. Yeah, sorry. I was checking out something that somebody had written in response to me about something that I think they're full of shit about, but these things happen on Twitter, you know? But anyway, I do have, no matter where the Twitter feed may take us today, you know, wherever it may in fact end up, I came across this, and in all honesty, I'm going to say it right now. This is by far one of the most adult moves I have seen in crypto. And if it is the just to make sure, yeah. Oh yes, it is. I just want to make sure it was right story, because this one, you know, we like to be cynical about shit like the Ethereum flash crash and the fact that, you know, a lot of noobs got burned in it and stuff. But really, when these things happen, it's incumbent upon us to put a good face on crypto and do our best to cover our customers' best interest. They invest trust in us as well as money. They're trusting that above all among our interests is in fact to maximize their profits. And that's okay. And that's exactly what we're trying to do here. Is we're trying to make sure that they actually do profit off of what they're doing with us. And when their funds are lost, we got to see what we can do about recouping them, or making them whole. And anyway, what I'm getting to is this is on GDAX, Ethereum USD trading update number 2. This is the second update regarding the Ethereum USD trading activity on June 21st, 2017. And I'm just going to go ahead. I can read the first update there. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and do that, just to give us some background. For those of you who haven't actually read this information, and this is the first trading update for Ethereum USD trading on GDAX. On June 21st, 2017 at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time, a multi-million-dollar market sell was placed on the GDAX Ethereum/USD order book. This resulted in orders being filled from $317.81 to $224.48, translating into a book slippage of 29.4%. This slippage started a cascade of approximately 800 stop-loss orders and margin funding liquidations, causing Ethereum to temporarily trade as low as 10 cents. Our initial investigations show no indication of wrongdoing or account takeovers. We understand this event can be frustrating for our customers. Our matching engine operated as intended throughout this event, and trading with advanced features like margin always carries inherent risk. We are continuing to conduct a thorough investigation and will keep customers updated with any resulting actions. With that in mind, it is important to note that these trades are final in accordance with our GDAX trading rules, section 3.1. Honoring properly executed orders is critical to maintaining the integrity of an exchange. In response to the large price movement, we decided to temporarily halt trading of Ethereum/USD. Once we are confirmed all systems were operating correctly, we restored trading in accordance with our downtime process, section 5. That's pretty apt to address such an emergency in these kind of professional terms. However, this is where these guys went a step further, and this is where I really tip my hat to them. Okay, this is trading update number 2 on Ethereum USD. This is the second update regarding the Ethereum USD trading activity on June 21st of 2017. You can read the first update, and we just did. GDAX is just over 2 years old and has grown to become one of the world's leading digital asset exchanges. We launched our first version of margin trading earlier this year and have generally seen strong customer demand and positive feedback. Our long-term ambition, however, is to be a leader among all exchange platforms, and we are committed to serving as the most trusted provider to the world's largest institutions and professional traders. We are confident that all trades this week were executed properly. However, some customers did not receive the quality of service we strive to provide, and we want to do better. We will establish a process to credit customer accounts which experienced a margin call or stop loss order executed on the GDAX Ethereum USD order book as a direct result of the rapid price movement at 12:30 p.m. Pacific Time on June 21st of 2017. This process will allow affected customers to restore the value of their Ethereum USD account to the equivalent value of their Ethereum USD account at the moment prior to the rapid price movement, To clarify, to customers who had buy orders filled, we are honoring all executed orders and no trades will be reversed. So if you got your Ethereum, you got your Ethereum. For affected customers who had margin calls or stop loss orders executed, we are crediting you your using company funds. We view this as an opportunity to demonstrate our long-term commitment to our customers and belief in the future of this industry. We will follow up directly with affected customers about this process next week. Excellent. Excellent. Very good. Thank you very much, GDAX. Hats off to you. Now, the duration of, however that long that takes, or whatever for everybody to get recouped, that will be their next demonstration of their proficiency as an exchange, and also the professionalism with how they handle the situation. The Bitfinex thing with BFX, that I still lost my butt on that. But just the same, they did make an effort. Later on, if you'd held on to it long enough, it kind of paid off. And for the most part, it seemed to satisfy everybody to the extent that they were able to try and trade back their funds with a token, whether it was Bitcoin or not, hey. But again, we'll see. We'll see. GDAX, good on you for the public gesture. Now you just got to follow through. And that might be a little more challenging than you'd anticipated, but I'm sure the challenge of that sell in and of itself was a bit more than you were anticipating at any one time. But anyway, I didn't really have a direction I wanted to go with this show. I normally don't. The show kind of leads me, Although I have been doing some investigation with regard to this latest whack-off with regard to segregated witness, and that was something that kind of interested me, because I've been getting all kinds of fucking stupid claims on my Twitter feed, and a lot of people telling me I don't know what I'm talking about and all this other bullshit. And so I did some investigation to try and find out, what is it that these people are viewing that gives them the impression that I'm the fucking idiot in the room? Because you gotta wonder, because sometimes you are the fucking idiot in the room. There's no denying it. You probably were the first time that somebody talked to you about Bitcoin. You were the fucking idiot in the room. You were the noob. Big fucking whoop-de-doo, right? So anyway, I try and constantly wonder, am I the cosmic schmuck in this equation? And if it turns out that I am, then, I got to do something to try and resolve that. I got to do a little homework. And so I did exactly that. And what I found out was that the latest clamoring with regard to segregated witness people and how they've got their 80%, they don't actually have that. Yeah, that's right. They're lying. What they have is 80% of the mining pools out there are signaling the intent to support the SegWit 2X agreement, the NYA agreement, or whatever the fuck. Now, personally, as somebody involved in cryptocurrencies, I don't trust anything coming out of New York. That's just instant suspicion. Why? They were the first people to try and regulate cryptocurrencies in any significant way here in the United States. So, fuck them. I spoke at, I did a live reading of that thing on this show, and it was painful. It's very painful. It's just depressing to see that somebody held cryptocurrencies in such a regard that they felt that they would be able to enforce the text or even the intent of the law with any level of success. And from what I've seen so far, there really hasn't been that kind of effect. I mean, the only thing it's really done is put a little bit of a chill on people wanting to start up a cryptocurrency business, and only in New York. You know, as we can tell from the ICO thing, it's not stopping other people from doing so. Doing something outside of the sphere of control of the United States, and trying to get on that bandwagon. But anyway, I do have something here about segregated witness 2 thing. But anyway, like I said, I've had a whole bunch of people trying to convince me that, segregated witness it's a shoo-in right now. It's not a fucking shoo-in. They're signaling intent to support. You know, a lot can happen between now and I think it's like July 21st or some shit like that. But whether or not they actually signal support, whether or not they actually have the hashing power, that is and always has been the crux of this whole thing. They say all kinds of bullshit, and the trading, the pools, the mining pools send representatives to these meetings to jerk people off, but they're under no obligation to fulfill on any of that shit. Mostly because, they just don't have a legal obligation to do so. These people are in China. They're like, fuck you. We don't want to do this shit. And I don't want them to do it either. I hope they don't do it. I hope they fucking renege on the deal. I hope they tell everybody else that was, nagging them to adopt SegWit. I hope they turn around and tell them to fuck themselves. I really do. Because honestly, I don't think it's the way to go with Bitcoin. And I certainly don't like this bullshit of the only solutions being put forward have some fucking sneaky bullshit way of getting fucking SegWit stuck into it. And what the fuck is that? Give us a goddamn clean 2 megabyte soft fork or fucking hard fork or whatever the fork we need to do to get the blocks up to 2 megabytes and go forward. You are fucking shit up. For every day that you sit around and kick your fucking feet on the ground and wave your hands in the air and get all pissed off about, no, why won't you scale? Why won't you scale? Fuck you. You want to scale? Go somewhere else. Go scale on fucking Ethereum. Ethereum is built for scaling. It's built for it. Bitcoin wasn't intended to exist as a fucking backbone for a bunch of fucking bullshit. Which, as far as I can tell, segregated witness is the setup to basically hard bake into the operation of Bitcoin the necessity to use a third party in the process of getting your transactions included on the blockchain. And if you don't believe me, go ahead and read that Lightning Network bullshit. 40,000 transactions per second. How much? And they can be held open in quote unquote indefinitely. The number that they use as a metric in there is 1,000 blocks, which I've done the math on that. That's roughly 8 days. So imagine that. Currently your credit card companies and your banks, they can jerk off with your money for 3 to 5 business days. They get it into their fucking payment network or their payment channel, whatever. It could be bouncing around for 8 business days. Or 8 regular days. And because Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies operate 24/7, they could be bouncing around and creating all kinds of fictitious activity. Or not fictitious, but like they could be creating transactions that they use to represent tokens or on the blockchain, or they could be doing all kinds of bullshit. I've done all kinds of speculation as far as like the uses for Lightning networks. And to me, again, they represent basically the end of immutability, because they're two-way, so that means reversible transactions. And like I said, they could be held open indefinitely, so you don't know when or if your transaction will ever get to the fucking blockchain. And you won't be able to afford to do your transactions on the blockchain, because you're going to be competing with these monkey fuckers for block space. I mean, how much do you think Goldman Sachs would be willing to pay for a fucking payment channel to anchor back to the blockchain, for a payment channel that they've had open for a month, doing transactions at 40,000 transactions per second? You know, and sure, it'll be real cheap for you. You know, because, and for them, it'll be great, you know, they'll be getting just fucking shekels by the second, you know, no problem, wonderful, you know, until they decide that that's not enough shekels, because my coke habit is getting more intense, and I just knocked up my 17-year-old stripper, so I need more money, so we're going to have to bump that rate up to, you know, instead of 0.25, we're going to have to go to 0.35. And then it'll be 0.5. It'll be 0.75. And then it'll be 1%. It'll be 2%. You'll be right back where you are right now. And the interval that it'll take for that to happen will be really, really short by comparison to how long it took for Bitcoin's fees to get so high. I mean, I'm talking maybe like a year, maybe 2 years. And then you'll be looking at the same fees, only your transactions will be happening on the Lightning Network, so they're just happening at so fast and so wonderful. And in the meantime, on your little Lightning Network, or your payment channel, you could be building all kinds of little gimmies where you're adding additional little transaction fees and all kinds of other bullshit. My biggest fear is that like they'll have for every transaction that you do with them, they'll have like multiple signatures associated with it that you don't know about. So like say they tell you it's a 3 out of 5, but really it's like a 6 out of 10, and they've got the other 3 of the keys, you know, and so they could just flip it on you at any time. There's three signatory keys, and then here's our keys, and then we're done. I mean, you know, there's our 4 keys and the 3 signatory keys, and you know, or our 3 keys and the signatory keys, and you know, no more. That's our money now. You know, you didn't do everything properly. You didn't transmit the funds from this account to that account properly, or some bullshit. For whatever reason, you know, there was a sunspot. The transaction didn't go through, but it ended up getting orphaned on our blockchain here and on our Lightning Network, and so it's ours now. Fuck you, go away, and you won't have any recourse. And I think that's one of the reasons why we still don't really have any major pushes for legislation in this, is because, you know, if we can keep it like it is, you know, Goldman Sachs, they'll be having a great old fucking time in that position where, you know, sorry, your mortgage payment didn't go through. Now your house belongs to us and it's on our blockchain, and your car belongs to us and that's on our blockchain too, and your accounts all belong to us and those are all on our blockchain. So yeah, go fuck yourself, or go find a cave to live in. I mean, that's the kind of power that I see in this shit. I mean, and if you don't believe it exists, consider how much power you have over your funds under Bitcoin, and now imagine that being in somebody else's control. You know, you face that risk when it's on an exchange, as proven by GDAX. You know, all of the trades executed as they were supposed to. They were completely legitimate transactions, and yet somebody walked away with a lot of money and a lot of people got screwed. And it was because they put the custody trust in GDAX and their margin mechanism and all that shit. You know, it worked as it was designed to work, and you got screwed. You know, now I'm really glad that they're actually making you guys whole again, but nonetheless, the panic is just the same. I mean, your heart dropped when you opened up your fucking account in the morning and said, "Holy shit, where'd all my fucking money go?" I mean, that still happened. You know, they can't really take that one back, but they can try and make it good. And like I said, I think if they make good on that one, it'll be a really good signal to everybody, pretty much. I mean, both within crypto and without. And it'll definitely put a big good face on us, and we certainly need that after some of the scammery we've seen in crypto. Shit, from what I understand, OneCoin is forging their own licenses now these days. So, anyway, I want to throw back down to some music here, and right off the bat, I'm going to go Fear Factory, Obsolete, here on Coin Metal. And that was Prong with Remove, Separate Self. And yeah, sometimes you gotta do that. You just gotta kind of let go of things and realize you don't really have all that much control of a lot of it. Anyway, I haven't really spent a whole lot of time mulling through the Twitterscape today. It's normally a daily pleasure of mine going through my Twitter feed and seeing who I can get to shadow ban me. Actually, that's not my goal. If you look at the times that I've been shadow banned, like if I could find the exact comments, because Twitter doesn't tell you who does that. It's obvious somebody bitched about you because all of a sudden you can't like stuff on Twitter. But anyway, if I could find the exact spots where it happened, I mean, the kind of stuff that I get banned for is just fucking ridiculous. It really is. I mean, I don't insult people. I do my best not to get personal, get derogatory or anything like that, because really there's already enough of that bullshit going on in crypto. I certainly don't want to be producing any more of it. That's why you don't really hear me talk down about people on this show. I mean, I talk down certain perspectives that I don't enjoy, that I think are errant, that things like, of course, segregated witness and whatnot, but I'm not going to go into that anymore. But point being that I don't use this as some platform to assassinate character on, and same thing with my Twitter feed. I'm much more interested in discussing ideas, because that's really what's going to straighten all this shit out, is ideas. Now, of course, they do have to be implemented, and they do have to be exercised, but ideas. And I keep coming back to this one thing that Nikki Sixx, of all people, said, is that during the creative process, while they're in a jam session or whatever, the word no is like banned. It's like if it comes up in your head, let's play it. Let's see where it goes. And it's a really hard thing to stick to. When you really think about it, it's like, if you're going, if you want to do something in music and then, somebody else comes along and they're doing something with it that you don't like, I mean, no, I want to do it like this. I mean, that's just me. I guess I haven't learned that much about the actual production of music. I'm sure that the environment itself is much more conducive, or at least conducive to the point where you're not feeling like you really have to hold on to any specific part of it. You're not so attached to it that you are in a position where you feel like you need to say no. It's like, yeah, that's tasty enough. Let's roll with it. And I mean, that's the kind of atmosphere that I hope always exists in crypto, is that, like, if enough people think an idea is a good idea, then they'll just go with it, you know. And so, you know, I find the addressing of technical issues with political responses and political techniques, I think it's kind of disingenuous. You know, I mean, there are plenty of other markets to play that kind of bullshit on. I mean, if you really want to, you can. If your intent is to operate in a certain way, shit, go create another cryptocurrency. There's plenty of them popping up all over the place. Although, I will say this: I think ICOs, I think they're bad, and the reason I think they're bad is because they don't require the participants themselves to actually engage in the process. They're all one-sided, meaning that the ICO company or whatever, they determine what's going on. I'm sure there's some sort of like voting method or something in all of them, but the willingness of the network or those operating the network to comply with your requests or be representative of all to the whim of the non-mining people, you know, is not going to be there. You know, that's why I find this idea of quote-unquote users and community in Bitcoin, this is completely useless terminology. It doesn't tell me anything about who these people are, and why am I going to entrust them with determining the policy of a 5 exahash, and it's probably closer to 6 exahash network? Why am I going to do that? It operates perfectly well with the competing interests inside it, as is, you know. But these people that are so hard on segregated witness, I don't think that I think the majority of them are not miners. And if you're not doing the work, I don't think you should have any say over how the work is done. Just that the work is done and that it's reliable. You know, if it beyond that, how it gets done and reliable, if you're a quote-unquote user, then, you know, good for you. You want something. Why don't you go create another cryptocurrency? Make one that does it the way you want it done. And I know I've sung that song entirely too long on this show, but that's the way I feel about it, and that's the way, you know, if you're here, you already know that. Anyway, I do want to get into some articles, and I do have one that appears to be worthy of reading, but I will say right now, the Bitcoin news, occasionally they disappoint on their editorial, and if it is too far off in the bushes or too difficult to read, I just won't do it. Anyway, here we go. This one's on the Bitcoin news, written June 23rd, 2017. Bitcoin increases risk of bank crashes. Wow. Of all the things I thought we were doing here, crashing banks, I didn't think was one of them. But anyway, let's continue. The value of Bitcoin has almost tripled since the beginning of the year. Jens Weidmann, president of the Deutsche Bank Bundesbank and one of the most powerful men in the financial world, sees this as a major threat to global financial stability. According to Weidmann, Bitcoins have the potential to make future financial crises much worse. The Bundesbank boss said this in a lecture in Frankfurt a week ago. Digital currencies such as Bitcoin have seen the risk of a bankruptcy rise rapidly. What? Risk of a bankruptcy? Is Bitcoin filing chapter 11? Anyway, continuing. Digital currencies such as Bitcoin have seen the risk of a bankruptcy rise rapidly. How does that fit together? Pressure on the banknotes around the world is growing. The power of crypto increases. The pressure on banknotes is growing all over. What? The power of cryptos increases and pressure on... Dude. This guy did not read this fucking thing aloud. And I'm just assuming at this point that this person has a penis because... let's see who wrote it. Breaking news, breaking news. And I don't see an identity of who wrote it yet. The guy did not read it though. Anyway, continuing. The power of cryptos increases and pressure on banknotes is growing all over the world because, in order to give the average citizen the feeling that such currencies are stable and secure, central banks could, in future, not in the future, have to provide their own cryptanages, Jesus Christ, and this dude's making up words. Much worse, and I'm gonna bail. And that's exactly what Weidman is concerned about. If banknotes were to offer their own digital currency in the near future, it could be obvious for normal customers to pay for it. What? This alone is not problematic. However, in times of economic crisis, this could mean the rapid ruin of banks around the world. Dude, what the fuck are you talking about? As soon as customers are concerned about the financial stability of their banking institution, they usually only want to save their savings, a so-called bank run, i.e. a rush to the bank. At the same time, many bank customers try to withdraw their entire money as far as possible in order to protect themselves from expropriation by the bank. In the worst case, this can lead to an insolvency. That's what happens when you do fractional reserve, people. Sorry. According to Weidman, the risk of bankruptcy is rising with cryptic payments, especially with a ECB issued, as withdrawal of money would be much faster. All that is needed is a digital transaction that is completed within a few minutes. Nobody needs to go to a bank switch or an ATM, and even worse, the bank can hardly protect itself against a deduction of digital money. It does not help to close the bank, as is currently possible at a bank run. For months, the world's leading central bankers are actually thinking about their own digital and state-backed currencies. The Bitcoin News. And whoever wrote this needs to take some English lessons. And I still don't see a fucking author on here. Anyway, yeah, that's interesting. It's not true, but the biggest risk that cryptocurrencies pose to banks is if banks don't sober up really fucking quick and get with a cryptocurrency medium that allows them to do the same thing that Ripple does, okay, without necessarily using Ripple. But I mean, banks, they have a traditional role they could be fulfilling. They're going to have to take less per transaction, okay, but they've already got all of the fucking regulatory bullshit they need, okay, to be their own fucking lightning networks and all that other bullshit. They've already got all the licensure and all that other bullshit. They could give cryptocurrencies a direct run for their money, because the fact of the matter is they have the networks already. Their biggest problem is transitioning funds and how long it takes. You know, I mean, they're getting better at that. I've noticed this, but at the same time, they have a long way to go. You know, as far as doing your own blockchain, the biggest problem with it is how can you trust that members within your own network won't fuck up the system? Or worse yet, how can you trust that someone won't hack into your system and harvest everybody's funds? This is that central point of failure that Bitcoin exists as a distributed network to resolve. But the advantage derived from that, is that each of the individual people that is mining on the network is doing so in their own way to some extent. There's some uniformity out there, but not as much as a lot of people think. But you can still do that right now. You can still right now set up a fucking miner and go for it. But the difference, again, I'm kind of drifted there for a moment, is that the individual people will doing it their way when they're using pretty much the same software, they get the consensus result. They resolve the block. Now, there's some goofiness in the mining and people mining hollow blocks and whatnot just to get the reward. And there's all kinds of that going on. But that's going on because the reward system is not being allowed to function the way it's supposed to function. Okay? There's a higher transaction load than can be stuffed into 1 megabyte on average. We know this. So the clear and simple way to resolve this is to increase the block size. Now, the people that argue against this, the thing that they're worried about is this is causing pressure. It's causing pressure of investment being displaced elsewhere, and it's causing all kinds of negative effects within the crypto realm. There's plenty of money that should be going from people's pockets to buying cryptocurrency mining hardware, and they should be participating in it. But because of this fuck up, because they allowed this one little point of Bitcoin to be completely fucking politicized, it's holding up the development of the network. And when I say that, I don't mean that because we're not adding SegWit, it's holding up the development of the network. I'm saying that because the people that want segregated witness are so intent on getting it in there that their avarice is what's fucking up the network. They need to get off of this shit and say, okay, here's a 4 megabyte fucking block upgrade, no segregated witness, no bullshit. And if 4 megabytes turns out that it's not enough, then maybe we'll go up to 8 megabytes. But we need to see first. Now, I've seen nothing in Bitcoin so far to lead me to believe that segregating the witness data and adding another series of nodes in there to process it and manipulate it and tweak it and all that other bullshit, I don't think it's necessary. And I said this before, but I think that the people that say malleation problem in Bitcoin, what I think they are really talking about is the fact that they cannot currently malleate the transactions the way they want to. Because I don't know about you, I've done a few Bitcoin transactions, but I've never had one malleated. If I put the appropriate amount of fee on there, it seems to go through without any issue. Now, why do I need to segregate the witness data in order to and get another series of nodes in order to make that work? No, what I need is bigger blocks so that the amount of space that my transaction will occupy in the block will be diffused over 4 blocks. Okay? Because there's 4 times as much space to stuff transactions into. That means there's 4 times as much potential for transactions to be in it. That means the transaction fees will be that much higher for completing the block, and it will make people operate honestly, because it will be far more profitable to securely and fucking absolutely 100% confirm every single fucking transaction on that block when there's 4 times as many of them to process and 4 times as many associated fees for processing them. That's the way this shit's supposed to work. Not, oh, you better put this fucking bullshit in there that allows the shit to be layered and stacked and layered. We gotta scale. Scale your fucking butt. That's some buzzword that some banker stuffed between your ears, and suddenly it means something because this person with authority in the current system is telling you that it means something. It doesn't mean jack shit. All of these quote-unquote scaling options or scaling things that need to be done, or what, you can do all that shit off-chain. But you'd have to take the responsibility for all the transactions that are happening on your little fucking network. Because all of a sudden now it's not Bitcoin processing those transactions, it's you. And that's one of the little blind spots people trying to sell you on segregated witness aren't filling you in on. Is that that doesn't change if you get segregated witness in Lightning Network. Okay? The responsibility over the validity of the transactions will shift to the Lightning node network operators. Okay? And that is going to be banks, that's going to be credit card companies, so on and so forth. Because those are the people that those fucking metrics on the Lightning Node Network white paper, they were tailored for fucking banks. Nobody but an exchange possibly needs 40,000 transactions per second. Nobody but an exchange needs that. Now, but an exchange gets a fucking license and take some fucking responsibility, like GDAX supposedly is going to do, when something gets fucked up and their customers get burnt. But it's accountability, folks. That's what they're trying to dodge with all this. You know, they're convincing Bitcoin people, oh yeah, you know, you won't be responsible for it. You won't be required to get a license, but that's bullshit. It's just complete bullshit. Anyway, this fucking article is stupid, and this person doesn't know how to write, and we don't know whether or not they have a penis, because they have not indicated. No picture, no name, no nothing. So it's crap. Sorry, Bitcoin News. If you publish it, that's your fault. So anyway, I had this other thing here, and this is on this SegWit 2x bullshit. And we're going to see if that has any kind of validity or credence to entertain us. And this is on CoinDesk. Bitcoin miners unite behind scaling proposal, SegWit 2x. Now, just to clarify prior to, they are signaling intent to support segregated witness 2x. They are not flagging support for segregated 2x or segregated witness 2x yet. They're signaling intent. Whether or not they actually achieve that is yet to be seen. Anyway, continuing. The majority of Bitcoin's mining power is lining up behind a scaling solution that would increase the network's transaction capacity. Bullshit. Known as Segregated Witness 2x, the proposal, if passed, could mark a significant advancement in Bitcoin years-long scaling debate, which is created by bankers, effectively spurring the activation of Segregated Witness, a scaling proposal introduced by developers in 2015, and doubling the current 1 megabyte block size. But while the actual SegWit 2x code is not ready for mining pools to run yet, it's still in the testing phase until the 30th of June. This isn't stopping mining pools from demonstrating they support the measure. Yeah, but not the miners mining on the pools. That's whole different story. Mining pools: Antpool, Bitcoin.com, Bitfury, Bixen, BTC.com, BTC.top, BW Pool, F2 Pool, and via BTC, which represent about 71% of the network's mining power, are already adding a piece of text to each block that they mine to show their support. Once the code is ready for showtime on the 21st of July, mining pools will be able to run the software, will not be required to. The segregated witness 2x scaling agreement will require 80% of the mining hash rate to run the code for roughly 3 days starting on that date. Yeah, gosh. Mining firms already announced their intent to support SegWit 2x, but after a meeting in Chengdu last week, 16 total mining manufacturers, exchanges, and mining pools unanimously agreed to a set of resolutions, including their intent to follow through with locking in SegWit by July 31st. As such, the roundtable bears similarities to past miner meetings, such as the one held in late April, where mining pools agreed to signal support for SegWit on Litecoin, an alternative blockchain platform. In the resolution, there is no explicit mention of BIP 148, a soft fork that aims to lock in SegWit in a different way, and whose supporters have been vocal about what they feel has been a resistance to SegWit over political and social issues. Yeah, we want to fucking maintain Bitcoin as is, bitches. As for whether full terms of segregated witness 2x will be enacted, however, that remains to be seen. Thank you very much for acknowledging that. A hard fork has long been seen as a contentious move by developers and some users. Mining Pool via BTC is already taking steps to indicate it could take aggressive actions to ensure a hard fork would enforce a 2 megabyte upgrade. As such, it remains unclear what the final impact of segregated 2x or SegWit 2x will be on the network, and how many mining pools will ultimately run the terms of the resolution. And so, yeah. And just a disclosure here, CoinDesk is a subsidiary of Digital Currency Group, which acted as organizer for the SegWit 2x proposal. Yeah, well, at least they're owning it, right? Yeah, like I said, they're flagging intent to support. Now, whether or not they follow through, I don't think they should. Honestly, I think they had to tell those SegWit people to fuck themselves, because the one thing that you got to keep in mind is they're trying to do a 51% attack with BIP 148. So as far as I can see, this whole SegWit 2x bullshit is a move intended to push the additional amount of miners into supporting segregated witness that they need in order to get a 51% attack to actually work. Think about that. You know, I think at last count, the last time I checked, maybe 38% of the blocks were signaling support for segregated witness. But that's a floating number, meaning that they have yet to hit their block threshold for it to go into effect. And I don't know. I would like to see us get through this without it. I really would, because the fact of the matter is all Bitcoin really has to do is stay Bitcoin for about another 6 months, and it will always be Bitcoin. Yep. Actually, 3 months would be about as long as it really needs. I think if Bitcoin stays as is without segregated witness for the next 3 months, then we'll be pretty much in the clear. Because there's an economic contraction going on out there. And some of it's being precipitated by this blockchain bullshit. But I think in the longer term, we're going to see more and more abuses of these honeypots, these central points of failure. You know, I see Ethereum, and when I look at the fact that all of the ICOs are being piggybacked on that thing, I'm like, it's now a central point of failure. If it goes down, every single one of those ICOs goes down with it. I mean, because they'll all be like selling their tokens to try and rebalance this shit. And then all their liquidity is going to get sucked up and try and stop loss orders and shit. I mean, it is a big fucking bubble waiting to happen. And I don't say that in a traditional kind of stock bubble kind of thing, or you know, it's not a bubble in the sense of like a flurry of activity. I mean, even though there is some of that, that's not what makes it a bubble. Actually, it's more like a time bomb, because all that really has to happen is Ethereum has to suffer another one of these flash crashes, except one that lasts for a longer duration of time. And Tone Vase, I'm sorry, I prefaced this episode with saying that I wouldn't trash talk other people on this, but it wasn't really trash talk. It was something he said on their show. I was watching the Bitcoin group earlier, but he said something about a crash lasting a week. I mean, could you imagine what kind of effect that would have on every single ICO that's attached to Ethereum? Closing down trading for an entire week, or a massive liquidation of the Ethereum that is actually still held by Ethereum, and like some flash crash like that held the market up for a week. Could you imagine what that would do to all the ICOs that are attached to that? It would be just fucking... by the way, see, that's not trash talking, but just commenting on something you said. Point being, that would be fucking devastating to every single fucking ICO out there. It would just be fucking... It would be like a nuclear bomb going off for a week. So, yeah. That's not the GR Bufu, though. The GR Bufu is much bigger and much more insidious than that, because it will take down crypto and fiat alike. Now, I don't think it'll actually bring regulation in, because I think they'll be too worried about trying to reassemble the entire global economy to worry about trying to regulate crypto. I think by then it'll be too late. And the fact of the matter is that the groundwork is already in it. I mean, it's already there. The potential, rather. And now whether it actually happens as I'm predicting, we will see. We will see. You know? Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down some more music. I'm going to put in some old school Anthrax here. Blood. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Pantera with Cowboys from Hell. And, yeah, you know, sometimes when the Twitter feed isn't as prolific as I would like it to be, I have to resort to other measures. You know, I have to actually use the Google. And this one was so clickbaity, I just had to go for it. It's on Bloomberg Gadfly. It's appropriate placement for it. This one was written by Lionel Laurent, and he's a Gadfly columnist concerning finance and markets. He previously worked at Reuters and Forbes. When the Bitcoin Bubble Bursts by Lionel Laurent. And this was authored on June 23rd, 2017 at approximately 7:51 EDT AM. Alright, financial markets are frothier than a millennial's 3D latte. Investors are scrambling to throw money at Argentina, Vice Media, and George Clooney's tequila. Only the cryptocurrency craze seems to give us comfort. There are worse bubbles out there. The latest warning against digital currencies comes from Aberdeen Asset Management's top venture capitalist, Peter Denius. He blames a fleeting frenzy of speculation for the explosion in prices and new coins. A lot of lessons will be learned and a lot of money will be lost before a lot of money can be made, he told Bloomberg News. It's a gold rush mentality. No, it's a hyper-restricted fucking North Korean market otherwise kind of mentality. Bitcoin boom. Cryptocurrency craze is unsettling people, but it shows little sign of going into reverse. Denius is right to say that the market is speculative and unsustainable. Despite recent price wobbles, Bitcoin has tripled year to date to $26.77. Its closest rival, Ether, is now worth more than 40 times its end 2016 level of $8. This isn't because people are using cryptocurrencies to buy homes or cars, or because regulators suddenly like them. It's seen as a way to make money. Another bubble? B of A sees S&P's 500's market cap relative to nominal GDP hitting all-time highs. It's hard, though, to separate the crypto craze from worries about regulated public markets and the real economy after a decade of ultra-cheap central bank cash. Everything's fine. Volatility keeps getting crushed. Talk of a bubble permeates every aspect of today's financial markets. Bank of America research offered up several signs of Wall Street excess on Friday. Number 1, Argentina's oversubscribed 100-year bond. Number 2, Facebook's market capitalization now exceeds that of the entire MSCI India Index. 3, volatility in the U.S. Treasury market is near all-time low. Bitcoin wasn't mentioned once. That makes it harder for the mind to the mud thrown at cryptocurrencies to stick. Even Fidelity's CEO and John McAfee are mining bitcoins in this market. This mind-boggling returns of cryptocurrency also reflect a desire to escape public market bubbles rather than just emulate them. Oh, yeah. If bonds are the old world safe haven, Bitcoin is the millennial generation's apocalypse insurance. Cryptocurrencies are marketed as a direct expression of opposition to central bank and government policy, far more so than gold. Just as low yields push wealthy investors to take bigger risks, like buying Argentinian debt, some people see Bitcoin as an escape from financial repression and instability. That's why Venezuela, where the demand for digital coins is soaring amid triple-digit inflation, currency devaluation, and political crisis, has one of the highest potentials for Bitcoin adoption in the world, according to the London School of Economics. The other top country is, you guessed it, Argentina. Monetary experiments beget technological ones. This doesn't mean that there are purely rational explanations for the actual price of cryptocurrencies today, tomorrow, or yesterday. If the bubble bursts, investors will have to lower their expectations as to what Bitcoin and its ilk can actually achieve without rampant speculation and illicit activity. But the more worrying scenario is that political unease about central bankers and wealth inequality will help to funnel more money into cryptocurrencies. Societe Generale's Albert Edwards reckons citizens are close to turning on unelected and virtually unaccountable central bankers after years of economic crisis and stagnation. Yeah, because, they like war. Bitcoin's computer scientists don't deserve to be seen as a better alternative, but the path out of the financial crisis takes a sudden turn for the worse. It may well be too late. Both bubbles seem too closely connected for comfort. To contact the offer, blah blah blah, aren't. Oh well, at least he actually bothered to edit his shit. But I think his analysis is just a little off. Mr. Lionel, where you are making a minor oversight here is that you're treating the US dollar as though it itself does not fluctuate in value, and this is simply not true. When they print more of them, they become worth less in the global market. We call that inflation in conventional talk, outside of all the weird bullshit they call that, fucking quantitative easing or whatever. Point being that when you do that, the one place that doesn't experience shrinkflation, like the size of your donuts or the size of the servings in any of the packaged food you buy. The one thing that doesn't experience shrinkflation to cover up that inflation is Bitcoin. Now, you can say that about gold, in the physical sense, but you can't say it in any other sense. If you're not holding the gold or the silver or the whatever fucking precious commodity it may be, you do not own it. It's somebody else's. It's in somebody else's vault, and they own it. They are responsible for it, which means sometimes you won't even get it. But the point being here is that cryptocurrencies, because they don't experience that same depreciation, they have inflation over time. And some people, back in the early days of cryptocurrencies, they actually bemoaned that. Okay? But that was before the US dollar took another, I want to say it's probably dropped another 20, maybe 30% in relative value over the last 2 or 3 years. And everybody likes to credit Bitcoin for the wonderful price that we pay for it. But again, as I've said many times on the show, what you're looking at when you see the quote-unquote price for Bitcoin, that's actually an exchange rate. That's how many US dollars to one Bitcoin. And so when you're looking at the meteoric rise of Bitcoin over time, you're not just seeing the relative value growing with increased interest and distribution of amongst more hands. That's not the only thing making it go up. Okay, the cost for the electricity is going up. The cost for producing the hardware is going up. So that translates out into the consumer market, and it's more expensive to buy the hardware for mining, as we've seen with GPUs, and that pissed off a lot of gamers for a little while. And it seems now, finally, like 2 years later, after I started suggesting it on this fucking show, that Nvidia or one of these other big chip manufacturers get the fuck into the goddamn mining game. Quit letting all that money just slide by you over to China. Really, give these fuckers a run for their money. There's just no excuse for it. Why Motorola, IBM, all these fuckers aren't making mining boxes, it's beyond me. And I even addressed the best, what I think the best form factor would be is something similar to an Xbox, okay? Or a gaming platform where it has its own little OS, it has its limited functions and whatnot, but you make it as easy to set up on your network as your Xbox is, and say it has the capacity to have 4 miners, like it has 4 miners in it, right? And so you can assign those miners to different networks to mine different coins, right? But then on the top of it, it's got 5 to 8 additional slots that over time you'll be able to swap out the miner that you put in the slot. You know, maybe they'll represent more than 1 miner per miner per cartridge that you slap into this thing. But, you know, similar to like the old school gaming consoles where you had a cartridge where you slap that sucker in the top, that you could do the same with quote unquote miners, new miners. You know, so like you've got 5 to 8 slots on the thing, which means you can expand it 5 to 8 times. Your base unit is like, you know, 150 to 250 bucks. Your miners are somewhere between, well, let's say low end 200, high end 500. You'd be fucking rich. Be recycling them every 2 years. Maybe have, and that's one thing you would have to think of right up front, because your recycle factor might go up. You know, like there might be some spike or new type of mining that's way more efficient or some shit. I don't know. Point being, you got to be able to recycle your hardware, because otherwise you're just going to be filling landfills everywhere. But ultimately, that's like the way to go about it, I think. You know, it's that you don't bother with like what coin people are mining. You don't bother with the maybe you bother a little bit with the mining software and whatnot, but you keep it all open source. You know, maybe have a standardized Linux-based operating system as your operating system, which would be the most likely anyway. Probably put some fucking Android derivative or some shit on it. I don't know. Point being that the whole like control over what people do with it, that you should just leave it up to people. You know, if they want to take their boxes and do nothing but 51% attack, you know, small base coins all day, let them. You know, don't fucking worry about it. Now, that's a point that might differentiate you from other manufacturers later on. You know, that you say, hey, you know, our stuff is so wonderful that, you know, no percentage of it was ever used for a 51% attack, or, you know, only 10% were ever used for 51% attack or other malicious activity. But the point being that I think that would be the way to introduce the average person into cryptocurrencies. You know, people talk about how to increase adoption and whatnot. You got to start with what people are familiar with before you can go abstract. And we're familiarized with the concept of a console. You hear what I'm saying here? And we're familiarized with the function of consoles and the limitations of them. You know, they're application specific. You know, it's a computer defined as, you know, what I know Microsoft for a while started kind of meandering a little bit, and the Xbox of today is, I don't know, it's supposed to be like a life unit or some shit, and I don't use it as that. I don't utilize the AI or any of that other bullshit. I don't use the speech to action. I don't want it to know my voice. I mean, if it's recording me otherwise, then, you know, that's Microsoft. But it's not because I'm teaching it my language, only because I'm talking in front of it. But the point being, like I was saying, that we're already familiar with these things. They're already like archetypal to us. And so repurposing them to develop interest in mining, I mean, it's clear that it's there. Okay, I mean, it's clear that there's enough demand for mining hardware that I think it was NVIDIA or AMD. I actually think it was AMD. They're going to be making cards now that aren't even going to be they're not even going to be part of the video card market. They're not going to be part of the gaming card market at all. They're just going to be dedicated to nothing but mining. And like I said, I think that's a step in the right direction. But the form factor of a console, man, I want a piece of it if you ever do it. You know, if somebody does that, you heard it here first. Chinese will probably do it before anybody. They're probably like running around a fucking room right now, getting a goddamn whiteboard out to try and design it. And that'd be the smartest thing to do, man. That's like a $10 million worth of fucking sales in the first year kind of gig, you know. But you'd have to be trying to keep up with the Chinese market. I think that's the point there, is that if there were more depth to the mining manufacturing market, that we'd see a faster development timeline, and we'd see faster miners coming out and more efficient miners coming out. You know, I've heard it talked about. I've heard a proof of work talked about as being something inefficient, and the fact of the matter is, it is supposed to be inefficient. It is supposed to be prohibitively expensive to try and circumvent the network. I'm sorry, that means that it's going to be more expensive to buy the hardware, and it's going to be more wasteful with regard to electricity. Now, that's not to say that we shouldn't try and make the process more efficient on the electricity side. We should certainly do that, and probably even the bandwidth side of it. But it's kind of something you got to accept. You know, that the purpose of all that power is to ward off potential attackers saying, "Oh, I want to take on the Bitcoin network." They're looking at that 5 exahashes and they're like, "Yeah, that's probably not a good idea." It's probably not the best idea I've ever had. But it's all part of that game theory dynamic. You know, and like I was saying earlier about the block size issue, it's unfairly, I think, persecuting the miners. They're going through the trouble of actually mining the transactions, and more people want to get their transactions on the network. So clearly, it's just a block size issue. It's not we need to introduce a third-party intermediary to increase the speed of the transactions. That's not the fucking problem. I mean, most of the shit that you buy with Bitcoin, you could probably handle waiting the 10 minutes. I mean, really, if it took 10 minutes for your first confirmation, you could probably afford to wait. And if they had more transaction space, that would certainly help that out as well. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. I'm needing to regenerate here, so a little bit of textures, Regenesis, here on Coin Metal. And that was Rude Awakening by Prong. And so I talk a lot about the fact that when we're looking at the quote-unquote price of Bitcoin, we're actually looking at an exchange rate. I'm going to dive just a little bit on the fiat side of that. And I don't know how serious to take this, only because it's on Shift Gold. But this is on shiftgold.com. And this is by Jim Rickards, or a statement by Jim Rickards. Why is the Fed so desperate to raise rates? Jim Rickards explains, and he explains it in a video, but we'll just go ahead and read the text portion of this. The June Federal Reserve rate hike wasn't a surprise. Most analysts expected Yellen and company to boost rates by 0.25 points. The only thing that was a little surprising was the hawkish tone the central bankers took at the most recent Federal Open Market Committee meeting. The Fed is hinting it will continue to push forward with interest rate normalization and begin to shrink its balance sheet. This raises an important question. Why? As we have pointed out, the data simply doesn't support the hawkish stance taken by the Fed. Even some mainstream analysts have made this observation. So what gives? Why is the Federal Reserve so desperate to hike rates? Investor and economic investor? And just adding more words there, I guess. An economic investor, Jim Rickards, has a pretty good answer. In an interview with Boom Bust, filmed during the June FOMC meeting, he said the Fed has to raise rates to get ready for the next recession, and that could be right around the corner. The reason they're doing both these things, the reason they're raising rates and the reason they're normalizing the balance sheet, is because they're getting ready for the next recession. Research shows that you've got to lower interest rates about 3% to get out of a recession. So if you don't have 3% of the if the Fed is really prepping for the next economic downturn, it has a problem. At this rate, it won't get the rates to 3% level until 2019. As Rickards points out, the next recession could be right around the corner, statistically speaking. We're due. But what if a recession happens next month or even next year? This expansion is one of the longest in history. A recession will come much sooner than later. As Rickards explains, the Fed backed itself into a corner. This accounts for the apparent urgency to raise rates despite relatively weak economic data. How is the Fed going to get us out of a recession if interest rates are only 1%? They've got two missions. One of them is to get up to 3 or 3.5%. At the rate they're going, it may take till 2019. They may not make it that far before the recession hits, but if you're only at, say, 1 or 1.5% to 2%, the recession hits and you lower to 0, the other thing you can do is QE4. You can expand the balance sheet, but you've got to reduce the balance sheet before you can expand the balance sheet. Of course, the Fed may actually end up precipitating the next recession, Rickards said. It could even happen as early as this summer because the economy is, quote, looking extremely weak right now. Quote, but that's their problem. That's what you get for 8 years of manipulation. Another investment guru agrees with Rickards. Jim Rogers recently said he thinks we should expect a market crash in the next few years that will rival anything we've seen in our lifetime. And yeah, pretty interesting. And I think we've kind of predicted the nature of that already. The GR Bufu. You know, my fear is that they're going to do all this segregated witness bullshit, and then you're going to have smart contracts and whatnot and flash crashes, and that they're in all the mix of that, you're going to end up getting tokens counted as real currencies, and tokens that, you know, are dependent on fictitious companies in Uzbekistan that have holding companies in Switzerland or, you know, some other bullshit. Bunch of fluff. But they're going to get counted as actual assets. And that, you know, this cascading effect that we were seeing in Ethereum, how much worse do you think it would be if all of a sudden confidence was lost in these and people were trying to cash out on them at their face value in the face of the market? I mean, it's not going to happen, man. And on that note, I got another article here, and this one is kind of linked in a not necessarily with what we were talking about recently with the Fed. I've got to say the biggest problem that they're facing right now is the excessive regulation that businesses face in trying to start up. You know, and the fact of the matter is that it's so easy to set up something online and have access to a global market. I mean, like, the only thing that really stops that is a whole bunch of bullshit regulation. You know, and it doesn't stop it very well, because I go on Facebook, and there's plenty of markets all over Facebook. But the point being is, we're being hindered. The whole economy, this side of the economy that is not invested in war, is being hindered, so we can continue affording war, so we can continue to displace government, so we can get their oil cheaper, so we can keep the whole show running, so we can... And it's this big, like, circle jerk, you know? I foresee a time in the not-so-distant future when this whole shit is going to fall, like, flat on its face. Okay? That we're not going to be able to sustain the growing energy demands that we have with fossil fuels. You know, I mean, there's really no excuse for it that we're in the 21st century and we're still dependent on fossil fuels. There's no excuse for that. There's more energy bouncing off the surface of this planet than we will ever need, and it can be concentrated in various ways. And it's on the planet, you know, where you're at for approximately 12 hours every day, unless you're, of course, towards the equators, and that gets a little shorter or a little longer depending on the time of year. But the point being is, there's really no excuse why we can't be sucking energy directly out of the sun, you know, via solar panels or whatever. You know, solar panel surfaces on everything and shit. We should be doing that. You know, this bullshit where we're trying to remain dependent upon fixed location, like, energy sources. You know, because oil isn't quote-unquote everywhere, or at least supposedly it is not everywhere. So you have to secure the location where it's at. And currently, securing new locations of where it's at includes, like, eminent domain and a whole bunch of expensive bullshit that you'd rather not go through to get energy. However, if we were to say go back in time to the early 1900s, there were competing fuels with petroleum, and, you know, things like ethanol, for one, alcohol. But there were actually electric cars back then as well too. That was really surprising to me, that we had electric cars back in the early 1900s. It's kind of a shocker. But where I'm going with this is that we shouldn't even be on fossil fuels. We should not be on coal. We should not be on fucking oil. I mean, and us being on them is just fucking stupid. I mean, it gives you a good framework to keep a circle of dependency and like a political balance and whatnot. It gives you a lever point there, but there are more than enough other resources that we can utilize and we should be utilizing that don't come along with all that war and death and displacement and bullshit. And I think that's one of the side effects of having a central bank system, is that the priorities of those people that are involved in running that are making money. They are a private entity. You know, so at the root, they want to make as much money as they possibly can. Well, you know, war, you get the shit for free after you kill everybody. So, you know, it's pretty good return, right? Except that you have to kill people to get their shit. You know, that's a poor investment in my book, but it seems to be the one that we must readily back these days. And I don't believe it's through choice. You know, I believe if the average person knew what is actually going into getting the gas into their tank, they would be motivated just out of a moral obligation to try and seek another way to fuel their vehicle. I mean, if I had the capability, I certainly would be doing that here. I mean, cranking out a goddamn ethanol still or something. Anyway, back to crypto stuff. And we talked a little bit about the fiat side, and one thing of note on that, I almost glossed over this. If you go back to the right before the Mt. Gox collapse, and this could be the quote-unquote collapse of the current quote-unquote bubble we're in with Bitcoin. We're not in a fucking bubble. I can tell you that right now. People are just shifting their monetary value to Bitcoin because it's clear that the banks can't do it by the way that they treat the notes that they issue. But anyway, this thing, Bancor, I got this goddamn article in front of me, Bancor. And we already talked about Bancor a little bit, but I think this is kind of funny, or at least the title of it. Bancor Unchained. All your tokens belong to us. Keep calm and read your contract. This post is just the first in a series of Unchained reports covering the often overlooked details about projects in the current ICO bubble. Last week, the Bancor project raised $150 million. The team stood up an impressive campaign, ending with the largest amount raised in an ICO to date. Bancor's main product is said to be a way to provide liquidity to the quote long tail of tokens, and seems to be an interesting idea that deserves exploration. It is led by an accomplished team of entrepreneurs and already produced some great-looking demos. It took some time to read many of the materials published by Bancor, including its smart contract code. I was absolutely astonished by some of the things I found, including what I consider dangerous backdoors. In this report, I will detail my findings, include the team's ability to take anyone's tokens arbitrarily. But first, a brief introduction on what smart contracts are and why it's so important to read and review them. Did you read your smart contract? Smart contracts are at the heart of the Ethereum blockchain. They are written by coders, some people who think of them as some people think of them as quote-unquote apps, but in reality, they aim to replace legal prose. Smart contracts can describe, for example, a set of conditions that will control who gets a pre-deposited amount of money, or they can describe who will get to decide what happens with a pool of coins. They are very much like regular legal contracts, but unlike regular contracts, there are no judges to make decisions at their discretion. Instead, blockchain participants will run the smart contract code to decide what's the best outcome of a transaction. There's only one way to interpret a smart contract, and that's the way a computer would. The intent of the contract writer does not matter, nor does the understanding of any counterparty. The only thing that matters is what's in the code. Reading Bancor's contracts. A lot of ICOs use smart contracts to raise money. Bancor is one of them. This report is at least as much about the importance of reading contracts as it is about Bancor itself. I won't be touching the actual details of Bancor's protocol at all. I recommend reading Bancor's white paper for that, which we may in fact do. For that, which is written very well written, and also Emin Gensir and Phil Dan's breakdown on its potential problems, and I already read those on the show. in response, which was published after this report. Instead, we will look at the contract of the actual crowd sale. Did the contract code fit the sale terms that were published by the project? Then we will look at the contract governing the token created by that crowd sale, BNT, and the dangerous backdoors that contract contains. Crowd Sale Unlimited. Bancor's crowd sale went live on June 12th. Prior to its start, in a blog post, the team published the sale terms, including the following. Number 1, the sale would run for no more than 14 days. Number 2, there would be a hidden cap for the amount of funds to be allowed in, which would be revealed when raising 80% of the cap. 3, during the first hour, called the minimum time, all funds would be allowed in even if above the quote-unquote hidden cap. If the sale goes over the hidden cap during the first hour, it would stop immediately at the end of this first hour. Otherwise, it will continue until reaching the hidden cap. However, the crowd sale contract viewable here told a slightly different story. I'll explain what the contract says in words and add a couple snippets so you can follow along if you can read contract code. The sale will indeed run for a maximum of 14 days. There will be a hidden cap, and the team will cryptographically commit to it, meaning it's hidden but can't be changed after the sale starts. It will be revealed whenever the team decides to reveal it. Okay. The sale was to have no limits other than 1 million Ethereum, a 1 million Ethereum safety limit, which equals roughly $400 million, 4 times the hidden cap that was later revealed, until the team would reveal the quote-unquote hidden cap. Not until 1 hour passed, as the blog post detailed these sales terms promised. In fact, I can think of no reasonable way they could codify this promise into a contract without revealing the hidden cap beforehand. As the sale started, people rushed to get their ethers in. The Ethereum network had a hard time processing all those transactions, as it frequently does during high-profile ICOs. As the first hour was approaching its end, about $70 million worth of transactions were confirmed by the network, with tens of millions more sitting in the backlog waiting to be confirmed. In order to comply with the terms the project published before, they had to stop the capless first hour at that point and revealed the hidden cap very soon thereafter, once 80 million was reached, which was 80% of the hidden cap. Instead, they released this critical update saying, "We have decided to extend the minimum time to 3 hours in order to allow the Ethereum network to process all pending transactions and allow everyone whose transactions have failed to retry. Our intention remains to include all early contributors." Many were surprised by this. Some investors were grateful, as they weren't able to get in during the first hour due to a high load on the network. Yet others were furious. Perhaps the ones that already managed to get in. They were promised that the cap will be enforced after 1 hour, but now that the minimum time was expanded to 3 hours, they were effectively being diluted. One group wasn't surprised. Those that took the time to read the contract beforehand. They always knew this was an option. It's hard to tell whether extending the minimum time was good or bad. The key takeaway from this ordeal, though, is that when a contract gives its owner capabilities that aren't listed in the official announcements and blog posts, some people who didn't read the contract might end up being upset. But for those who didn't read the contract, a bigger surprise is in store. A token full of backdoors. When people think of cryptocurrencies or quote-unquote digital assets, or whatever the cool kids call them today, they think of decentralized, censorship-resistant tokens with no central party could control for any reason. And while some projects have various degrees of decentralization, I have never seen a token as centralized as BNT that puts so much power in the hands of so few. The Bancor token contract controls the actual BNT token and its behavior. It is currently owned by the Bancor crowd sale contract, which is owned in turn by a closed source contract, which is most likely a multi-sig account held by the project and or its partners. These are the powers that the Bancor crowd sale contract allows its owners. All transactions using the BNT token can be disabled by the team at any time for any reason. Presumably, the capability is there to allow the tokens to be frozen immediately after the crowd sale for about a week until Bancor's main product is ready. However, for some reason, after they'll unfreeze the tokens, the team will retain the option to freeze transactions again at any time. Smart contract owner. Contract is allowed to disable transaction. Contract owner. Bancor team is allowed to use Bancor token contract above to disable transactions. The team can issue new tokens at any time. Bancor's Changer product requires the ability to create tokens programmatically based on a market-making formula distilled in another smart contract, so it must have the ability to create more tokens. However, for some reason, the team has the ability to create new tokens arbitrarily for whatever reason they choose. Shockingly, the team can destroy any tokens from any account at any time. Once again, Bancor's Changer product requires the ability to programmatically destroy tokens sent to its contract, so there has to be a function to destroy tokens. But it could be easily limited to destroying only tokens sent to that contract. Instead, the team has the power to pick any account's tokens and destroy any amount of them at any time for any reason. The third point is unheard of. I've looked at other high-profile contracts managing other tokens and couldn't find anything similar. This puts unprecedented and worse, unexpected power in the hands of contract owners. How did this go by unnoticed? For anyone who's been in crypto long enough, this is a big no-no. How come no one noticed this? Well, people did notice. As noted in this blog post, and we may follow that up, 2 security auditors were invited by Bancor to inspect the contracts. However, the blog post only refers to the positive points from the audits. The post didn't list the concerns that both auditors raised and instead linked to their full reports, which are very lengthy and highly technical. I doubt many people took the time to deep dive into the full reports. We haven't yet. We may. Martin Holst, Swede security lead at Ethereum, wrote in his report, "The Bancor protocol implementation has a security model based on centralized trust. The owner of the contracts have spelled incorrectly to a large degree full control over assets traded over the platform. Since the Bancor protocol is a fairly complex scheme, it makes sense to have a centralized model, at least initially." While Ethereum Foundation's member Nick Johnson wrote in his own report, "Participants should note that the contracts as authored for the crowd sale are not trustless and depend on the good behavior of Bancor. Bancor have stated that this is intentional, intending to allow them to respond to and remedy any issues that come up during the crowd sale and in early operation. and that manual oversight will be exchanged for more automated operation once they are confident the system is working as intended. So both of these respectable auditors found that the contracts are fully centralized in an unprecedented way. When they told Bancor, the Bancor team, Bancor just said, "We know, that's the point." Now the team's reasoning seems to be that while their main smart contract is still being tested, they should retain full control in case anything goes wrong. Think of the children. They expand on this approach in a blog post about learning from the DAO. That blog post details the team's control over their main changer product, control which they plan to diminish over time, but it doesn't mention at all the backdoors listed above. From Wikipedia's article on backdoors. Although normally surreptitiously installed, in some cases backdoors are deliberate and widely known. These kinds of backdoors might have quote-unquote legitimate uses, such as providing the manufacturer with a way to restore user passwords. I'm pretty sure that the Bancor team has no intention to misuse these backdoors, and that they believe they have quote-unquote legitimate uses. I'm not 100% sure of their legitimacy myself, but in any case I would argue that their existence should be clearly communicated to investors. I agree. People in this space expect the control over tokens to be fully decentralized, and if for some reason they're not, this should be made perfectly clear. Upgradability. Bancor's contracts are upgradable, meaning they can replace them with new functionality, giving them more power or removing power from themselves. They promise on some communications they will gradually remove their control over the system. The currently deployed Bancor Crown Sale contract is planned to be replaced by Bancor Changer in the next few days. However, this new contract still retains the 3 backdoors: freezing all transactions, issuing new tokens, and destroying any tokens. The risks. As I mentioned before, I trust that Bancor's team won't try to misuse this backdoor. However, having so much power concentrated centrally creates a potential single point of failure. The keys held by the team could be stolen, for example, or law enforcement could force the project to freeze or destroy tokens if they realize this is possible, and if for some reason they would suspect any wrongdoing. It could be argued that BNT investors would be at risk of the team being compromised anyway, so these backdoors don't add any significant exposure. It could also be argued that if these backdoors are misused, Bancor could always use reissuance capabilities to restore the state prior to any misuse. However, because the existence of these backdoors isn't properly communicated, this puts many users at risks, especially exchanges. Exchanges that list the BNT token might not be aware that if the team's keys are compromised, the exchanges could lose access to deposited tokens. This could raise regulatory concerns, but also technical risks. Exchanges normally don't monitor accounts to check that tokens are still there. They assume that once deposited, the tokens stay in place unless they're moved. If an exchange's tokens are destroyed or frozen while the market is active, this could bring a world of pain to the exchange operator, who might not be able to reverse executed orders. Recommendations and conclusion. For the Bancor project, I would recommend to immediately restructure the contracts to remove the team's capability to freeze, issue, or destroy assets arbitrarily. Otherwise, a proper advisory should be given to investors and industry members about the existence of these backdoors and how to mitigate their risks. Sorry. For exchanges, the safest route would be to delay listing BNT tokens until the team removes these backdoors. If this is not possible, at the very least inform users during the deposit process that their tokens may be frozen or destroyed by Bancor, and adapt the exchange's system to monitor the tokens remain non-destroyed and liquid. For future crowd sales. In order to be fully transparent with potential investors and users, it would be best if ICO projects share a clear quote-unquote English translation of their smart contracts that explains step by step what the contract does. More than anything else, it should focus on the differences between the written terms and the contract itself. Differences that sometimes have to exist. And for users, always read the contract before you sign. The security of smart contracts depends on the users reading them. If you can't read the code yourself, find someone who can. What do I do? Why do I do this? I believe the blockchain industry is in a bubble, and that investors and projects aren't being told the whole story. I want to see this industry to continue to prosper, so my goal is to help the market self-regulate by bringing to light the details I feel investors and users should know about. I do hope that the Bancor team will see this as constructive criticism and look for ways to improve transparency for its community. I plan to do future Unchained reports on other projects. Many ICO projects these days pay bounties to community members who help spread the word about their projects. I believe this is a bad practice. If you like this report and would like to see me stay independent, please consider sending modest blah blah blah. Okay. So that's a pretty damning indictment. Okay. Oh, wait a minute here. And there is a disclosure here at the end. I am an employee at Colu, which develops the Colored Coins protocol and local currency solutions. My employer wasn't involved in this report in any way, and any research leading up to it was done on my own time. Any and all opinions are my own, and I never owned any Bancor tokens. Neither have I. And it's a tasty read, and shit. I didn't really address the arbitrary nature of the creation of coins or whatever, but I mean, he actually includes code examples in here. So, yeah, if you can read the code, you could probably tell exactly what he's saying. Yeah, that's just too much control to have in any one set of hands. And it's back to trust again. You know, you've got to trust that the Bancor team won't just inflate your fucking tokens to nothing, or that they won't destroy them. You know, that's that's a danger I hadn't even anticipated or considered before, that they would be able to destroy your tokens in your account without your knowledge. I mean, that's dangerous shit. That's so far beyond quote unquote trust. I mean, you might as well just bend over and lube up or something, because you're placing an awful lot of trust in them. And in all honesty, I think that's too much trust. You don't need to rely on trust in cryptocurrencies, and why people are trying to rely on trust in cryptocurrencies is fucking beyond me. I'm just, I don't know. It's kind of beside myself with that one. You know, that there's this big movement for platforms, and that they can issue their own tokens, and why do you want that? Do you want that? Why not just do the work and participate like you're supposed to? Why invest in the work that other people are doing when you're uncertain as to the underlying value therein? I mean, they talk about it being in a fucking bubble. Dude, it's not in a bubble. You want to know what a bubble is? A bubble is when there is nothing justifying the frenzy. When it's just fucking happening because people are looking for something to make a quick buck on. With regard to cryptocurrencies, I think that a lot of the migration is more because it's independent of banks. And it doesn't include the ability to censor and delete transactions on the fly like these fucking that ICO Bancor apparently can. So, this is just more of that push to create third parties in systems that were designed specifically to operate without third parties. P2P cash systems, person-to-person cash systems. That's what these are supposed to be. And I mean, on exchanges, you're placing a little bit of trust in the exchange, and so that's implicit. But if you're doing the exchange directly with the person that you're actually transacting with, there's no need for the exchange at all. You can deal, and you can deal directly with people. And as a matter of fact, I want to add this one in before we close out the episode here. I think we got enough time for it. Maybe, yeah, we got enough time for this. This one is on the Merkle.com. Should you use Skype to buy or sell Bitcoin? And this is by J.P. Buntings, written June 22nd, 2017. Here we go. When it comes to buying Bitcoin these days, there are many ways to do so. Bitcoin exchanges and brokers are two popular methods, even though they verify the user's identity quite thoroughly. A Bitcoin ATM is another choice, assuming there is such a device near you. However, it appears the latest trend is to buy Bitcoin through Skype. It is a rather strange method, although this solution has been around for quite some time now. Buying Bitcoin via Skype? It sounds rather strange to buy Bitcoin by using the Skype Messenger platform. After all, Skype itself does not provide a way to buy Bitcoin directly. It is certainly possible to buy Skype credit with Bitcoin through third-party services, but it does not work the other way, unfortunately. However, now it appears a lot of people are flocking to Skype as a way to buy Bitcoin. More specifically, they do it because it does not require thorough identity verification, which sounds quite appealing. It is unclear how many people find these dedicated Skype groups to trade Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, though. There is no official directory for such practices, nor are there websites dedicated to this practice. We do know people are selling Bitcoin through Skype we do know many people are selling Bitcoin through Skype for many years now. Unfortunately, this also means there are also a lot of scammers on Skype who will gladly take your money and never give you coins in return. One thing Skype groups have been working on for them is how there can be quite a lot of liquidity. After all, these are usually people who do not store funds on exchanges, which also makes it hard to gauge how much funds they have available to play with. Relying on Skype to buy or sell Bitcoin is a rather troublesome matter, as it requires a lot of inherent trust between all parties involved. Moreover, there is no way to prove the buyer or seller actually has the funds required to complete the transaction. That's not entirely true at all. Being able to buy or sell Bitcoin without limits and verification is quite significant, but also very risky. As mentioned before, there are quite a few scammers out there. It is impossible to actually trust the other person, which makes it impossible to determine who should send funds first. Moreover, there is no way to use a reliable escrow service unless one contacts someone from the Bitcoin Talk forum, for example. Novice users will not go through these steps most of the time, though, as they just want a quick and convenient access to cryptocurrency. Do keep in mind that even if you do find a legitimate buyer or seller on Skype, there will be a premium to pay. These premiums can be on par with or higher than the price one pays through local Bitcoins. It is evident that some of these Skype sellers may be active on local Bitcoins, Paxful, or other peer-to-peer exchange platforms. It is always best to go through such platforms before contacting random people on Skype to buy or sell Bitcoin through. In the end, it is not hard to see why people would buy or sell Bitcoin through Skype. Most people remain oblivious to the risks associated with this practice. Always do your own research before contacting someone on Skype to buy or sell Bitcoin. Make sure to use a neutral escrow service that processes in the process as well. It is always better to stick with peer-to-peer exchange platforms rather than contacting strangers on the internet via Skype. And yeah, I think that's okay, but there were a few errors in there, JP. You gotta watch that shit. Definitely read your own shit before you hit publish. But yeah, that's I think that because it's possible to buy Bitcoin via Skype, that people will buy Bitcoin via Skype or sell it via Skype as well. You know, it's a visual platform, and there is a visual component to your Bitcoin wallet, so there's no reason why it shouldn't be possible. And there's no reason why you shouldn't do it, other than, of course, scammers. But I was thinking about this, and one thing that would be cool is, like, if you were making a product and somebody ordered it from you through Skype, right? And so you would, say, do a multi-signature transaction with them where the funds would mostly be yours, except that they would hold a key that they would verify when you actually show up at the postal service, and you give them a what do you call it, a tracking number for the product that they're sending you, whatever it may be. And I'm sure that there are some people out there that have trusted parties, you know, or parties they can trust on either side of that transaction, which makes all this Skype business possible, of course. I mean, somebody had to be able to do it successfully at least once, or nobody else would try and do it. It's just how this shit works. But yeah, I don't see anything wrong with trying to use Skype for cryptocurrencies, but again, I would stick to people that you actually can trust, or that are willing to go through various steps in order to consolidate that trust, or prove that you're trustworthy, you know. And I'm sure there's a way to set it up to where, you know, if the sender adds a tracking number to it, that clears out the last signature on the transaction clears, I get the money, you get the product. It's all wonderful. Anyway, that's the way I envision cryptocurrencies working, or as they can work. Whether or not people will actually perform what they say they're going to perform, send you what they're going to send you, or say they're going to send you that again, there's just a little bit of trust involved, you know, and I'm sure if you can handle trusting a cryptocurrency exchange, that you could can maybe extend a little trust to somebody that's willing to exchange you something physical for cryptocurrency. In any case, I want to go ahead and close this one out. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And until then, you can find me in the IRC chat room for Verge Currency. You can also find me on Twitter under DJ eRock23. This episode will, in fact, be up on the on my YouTube channel as I am recording it. And so if you did miss out on a part, it will be there for your listening pleasure. And so, until then, I want you all to trade safe. I want you to do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because you cannot trust anybody else to do it for you. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and close this one out with White Zombie, More Human Than Human. Thank you very much for listening, and y'all have an excellent weekend.